What I saw kind of blew my mind away. The shadow was a lot longer than it should be. It looked like this monolithic structure.
The sighting bears little resemblance to any known natural phenomenon.
Lo and behold, there was this gigantic monolith sitting at the surface of Phobos that was essentially a towering feature. It's the size of a skyscraper.
Will NASA's latest Mars probe discover ET next door?
One. We have ignition, we have liftoff.
In 1975, NASA launches Viking 1, the first human vessel to land on the Red Planet. Its mission: find life on Mars. As Viking drops toward the planet's surface, NASA engineer Dr. Gilbert Levin monitors from the heart of mission control.
The moment Viking 1 touched down,
Fantastic.
this was excitement beyond belief. It beat the World Series.
The lander is programmed to detect Martian life using a radioactive soup. Its mechanical claw digs into the blood-red soil.
They take a scoop of Martian dirt and they pour nutrient solution on top of it.
It's like fishing. You put bait on a hook and wait for a bite.
All you're doing is feeding suspected microorganisms, and if they metabolize what you feed them, the gas they make from it will be radioactive. That makes it very easy to detect.
No radioactive gas, no life. It's that simple. For 40 long minutes, the sensors flatline.
All of a sudden, we see there is a response, a result coming back showing thousands of counts per minute of radioactive gas coming out of our sample. That was the proof that NASA said it would accept before the mission.
This is a NASA-approved experiment on a NASA mission, and the results are clear. This is life.
Viking repeats the experiments. Each one confirms signs of Martians. There is life on Mars.
I immediately sent out for a bottle of champagne and a big cigar.
But when NASA calls a press conference, to Gil's amazement, he is told to downplay his results.
They put me down as the last one to speak, and they had cautioned me not to say I had detected life on Mars.
Why isn't this information being circulated? This could be one of the most important discoveries of all time.
According to NASA, the reason is simple. Gil's results contradict two other experiments run on similar samples, also aimed at detecting life.
They look for organic compounds, these just molecules that are typical of life in that dirt, and they don't find any. So they say, okay, forget it. Whatever was happening there, it wasn't life.
Without this evidence, NASA isn't convinced they found life on Mars.
And they said, no organics, there goes the ball game.
But now, after nearly 4 decades of uncertainty, new evidence could explain why NASA's other experiments contradict Gil's results.
It may be that Gil is right, that we're just confused because the signal is not exactly what we expected, but it's still biological.
In 2008, NASA detects vast salt deposits across the planet's surface.
One of the surprising results from Mars exploration was the discovery that the salt on Mars was not like the salt on Earth. Think of it as a bizarre form of salt.
Crucially, when Martian salt is heated, it destroys any biological molecules. And the other experiments Viking conducted all heated the soil samples in an attempt to release organic compounds. So even if life exists in the salty soil, the other experiments destroyed any trace of it. Additionally, the salt may do more than mask the presence of life on Mars. it could also be a key to its existence. On Earth, we've discovered bugs that eat this salt to live.
There are microorganisms that can consume that salt. They can use that salt the way we humans use oxygen.
Mars could be a salty haven for life, too.
Mars life would not be very alien. It would have many of the same characteristics and features of life on Earth.
Viking's biological detectors couldn't have found Martian life because only Gill's tests left the soil unheated, preserving evidence of any salt-munching microbes. It may be time to revisit Gill's findings.
If you want to find out what the data really mean, you've got to go back.
In August 2012, NASA's Curiosity rover lands on the Red Planet. Its dual mission: to find evidence of water and seek out signs of life in the planet's past. On board, it has a sophisticated lab, which can continue that search for life.
Yeah, I would love to be able to say, we found it, life on Mars, this is it. Right now, we don't have convincing evidence.
If Gil Levin is right, the Martians will be there, waiting.
Are these traces of life that once existed on Mars?
January 2004, NASA's mission to Mars is on the line.
Spacecraft is ready for EDL.
The entire $800 million operation depends on the Opportunity rover probe's high-risk landing inside Eagle Crater.
Current speed is fast enough to traverse the United States in less than 12 minutes. 3, 2, 1. Parachute deployed. We're on Mars, everybody.
When Opportunity starts transmitting, Mission Control's elation soon turns to shock.
We're looking around, we're taking pictures, and we see the ground covered, literally covered with these little spherical grains. And this is really bizarre.
The Martian surface is covered in small spherical rocks.
What are these things? Where'd they come from?
What are they doing there? How do you get little balls in this rock?
Scientists give the puzzling round rocks an equally puzzling name: Mars Blueberries.
Mars is the red planet, right? Everything's red. And these are less red. So to an astronomer, less red means blue. Blueberry, it's cute, you know, it's fun.
We get rid of mysteries by naming them something that we can understand. I think they're too quick to do that.
The presence of spherical rocks, a totally different color from the surrounding terrain, raises the question of how they got there.
Could this have an artificial source? Obviously, something powerful had happened that blew bits of the Martian crust off. Something's funny going on there.
What an artificial source could be remains pure speculation, until the results of an experiment to test the effects of meteorite impacts provides an exciting possibility. When scientists fire high-voltage plasma charges at Martian dust, the energy beams transform the fragments into perfect spheres.
I suppose it's possible that plasma weaponry fired into the ground on Mars could cause features like this. One would have to imagine this massive plasma war among Martian civilizations.
Another theory for the blueberries' origin discounts plasma weaponry, but supports the idea of life on the red planet.
Mars blueberries might seem a little strange. We also have them here on Earth. created in the presence of water.
Those little shapes, they're called concretions to the geologists, and those form in rock as water circulates through it.
Water on Mars is very exciting because it means that at one point Mars was probably habitable.
We've got active groundwater. That's what you need on Earth for life. Perhaps this was an environment where life could have thrived.
If the Martian blueberries indicate the presence of water, the implications are astonishing. These tiny spheres could provide the best evidence yet that Mars was the perfect breeding ground for alien life. Astonishing footage leaves scientists stunned.
We get not just one, but a double UFO sighting. Doesn't that strike you as odd?
August 6, 2012. Deputy Principal Investigator Jim Bell waits as NASA's innovative new sky crane landing system lowers the Curiosity rover onto the surface of Mars.
There's this immense wave of relief that kind of washes over everybody.
After an 8-month wait, scientists will finally see the first high-resolution pictures of the red planet. But the images that grab the world's attention suggest Curiosity has company.
We've wanted so long to be on Mars, looking around. We've got Curiosity there. We flip on the cameras. What do we see? Very first thing that happens, 2 flying objects.
An eerie, cloud-like shape hovers on the horizon. And that's not all. Moving across the cloud, a bright object travels at high speed.
A double UFO sighting. That seems very strange to me. Might be what you'd expect if there were beings paying attention to what we're doing in outer space.
A theory emerges that the white dot could be a snapshot of either Deimos or Phobos, the moons of Mars. But Bell isn't convinced.
What's actually seen in those pictures is not going the right way or the right speed or the right brightness to be either Phobos or Deimos, Mars's other moon.
For Jim Bell, the very movement of the object is a problem. Because the first picture Curiosity took after landing was not a moving image.
We took a few pictures with the Curiosity cameras right around that time, but we didn't take a time-lapse series of images. We didn't take a movie with those cameras.
Curiosity's hazard camera took only 8 photographs at the time of the landing, and all of them were still images. So if a dot is moving across the picture, it has to have been added later.
This image is just that, one image. So how can you have a movie from just one image?
Astronomer Mark D'Antonio is also a professional image analyst. He can prove just how easy it is to doctor a picture like this.
I've taken this similar image, taken of the billowing cloud on the horizon. You see it just there, right there on the horizon. And I've added a UFO of my own. And when I hit the play button, you can actually see it moving across. And then off it goes. It disappears, and it goes behind a part of the structure of the rover. But I added that in. It's all fake.
It's that easy to alter NASA's footage.
We post our images on the internet in almost real time. Anyone in the world can download them. And if you want to go in and change the brightness of some pixels and duplicate the images and make a little time lapse, it's possible. People are really good with image processing software right now.
One final piece of proof is the cloud seen billowing on the horizon.
The cloud wasn't moving at all. And that was a problem for me because that made me feel like, well, this is clearly a hoax.
Yet that doesn't explain the presence of the cloud in the first place. Something must have caused it. For the answer to this, Jim Bell believes we need to study the events leading up to the landing.
Many of my colleagues think that we sort of accidentally captured the crash and the explosion of the sky crane. This whole package flies away off to the horizon, still has a whole bunch of fuel on it, and As it hits the ground, that fuel explodes, creates this big plume, and I think that's what we're seeing in those images.
But not everyone accepts the sky crane explanation.
It's too simplistic, too easy. I think we would certainly know if the sky crane was going away, what would happen to it. We'd know about that.
To date, NASA has offered no official explanation for the anomaly. When a NASA probe surveys a Martian satellite, what it discovers astonishes scientists on Earth.
I took a look at the Phobos image. I literally could not believe my eyes.
A towering structure looms over the moon's surface.
If you were to be standing at the surface of Phobos, this thing would be a skyscraper.
It's so proper and right-angled, you think that it's artificial.
NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory is the site of some of humanity's greatest technological achievements. Among its many successes is the Mars Global Surveyor program. But in 1998, one thing nobody on the elite NASA team expects to find is signs of construction on the surface of the red planet's largest moon.
I wasn't really looking for anything, just kind of glancing through the images, and something just popped out and struck me. I was like, whoa, what is this thing?
Instead of a featureless expanse of empty rock, Palermo sees something disturbingly regular.
What I saw kind of blew my mind away. The shadow was a lot longer than it should be. It looked like this monolithic structure.
The sighting bears little resemblance to any known natural phenomenon.
Lo and behold, there was this gigantic monolith sitting at the surface of Phobos that was essentially a towering feature. It's the size of a skyscraper.
Using the length of the shadow, scientists calculate that the odd structure is over 400 feet high.
To have a structure standing upright as big as this is, just sticking out of the surface, it's a strange phenomenon.
The structure becomes known as the Phobos monolith. And it generates excitement among the giants of space exploration.
There's a monolith there, a very unusual structure on this little potato-shaped object. When people find out about that, they're going to say, who put that there?
When I say the word monolith, the first thing I think about is 2001. Arthur Clarke, he made the monolith a gift from alien kind.
In 2001, A Space Odyssey, an unknown civilization leaves towering monoliths across the solar system as beacons to contact humanity.
Arthur C. Clarke posed the notion, what if aliens were interested in the Earth, were interested in possibly us?
If you're an alien race that's wanting to reach out to humanity, you don't want to mess up our evolution. What you would do is put a message for them just outside their reach.
But NASA's planetary scientists have an explanation for the monolith's presence that doesn't require aliens.
As much as I would find it exciting if it were a monument left by an alien civilization, the hypothesis to beat is that it's just a boulder. It's a giant boulder sitting on its end.
Though a skyscraper-sized boulder perching precariously on one end sounds unlikely, the tiny moon's weak gravity makes strange things possible.
This weak gravity environment, it doesn't make much difference if you're a boulder sitting on one end or if you're sort of lying on your side. Things just tend to sit on these bodies the way they land on them. This monolith is probably just a giant boulder that was tossed in this catastrophic event.
Until we reach Phobos, all theories about the monolith's origin must remain speculative. A NASA scientist vanishes. The FBI investigates.
No explanation. He's just gone. But nothing disappears without a trace.
What does he know? And could he possibly be a threat?
Ohio State University. Dr. Ron Lee is one of the leading scientists in NASA's $1.5 billion Mars mission.
This guy is a world expert in remote sensing and geospatial mapping. He's made really important contributions to the Mars Exploration Rover missions as well as NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter mission.
In January 2014, he's at the pinnacle of his career, working towards a manned mission to the Red Planet. He's primarily responsible for the imaging technology on NASA's latest Mars rover.
Professor Ron Lee is in line to be a principal investigator on Mars 2020, which is really a space scientist's dream gig.
This is the job, a mission to Mars. This is the gold standard.
On February 15th, Dr. Lee doesn't show up for work.
One day, out of the blue, he's gone. And I mean gone. He doesn't even pack up his office. All his possessions still in his office, his wife still in the States, and he disappears.
This is a very accomplished scientist. He's not the type of guy you would expect to just drop off of the map. Why would he disappear?
The first clue comes when the missing scientist sends a brief email to Ohio State University.
There's a short email from this scientist asking for to leave to take care of his parents, who are in China. But that's all there is.
University officials who respond to the email receive no reply.
They try to reach out to him, no luck. They can't make contact.
For almost a week, Lee's colleagues can only speculate about his fate. When he finally makes contact, the message comes from China.
6 days after he disappeared, he sends a resignation email to his employers.
Why would a person who submitted a grant that likely would have been approved for imaging on Mars, why would he suddenly disappear?
This just doesn't make any sense.
4 days after Lee's resignation, his wife arrives at his lab, unannounced.
When Lee's wife went to clear out her husband's office at Ohio State University, she was questioned by the university about Lee's actions. She maintained that Lee was very secretive and never discussed his work and that she knew nothing about it.
The pattern of behavior is so disturbing that university staff alert the FBI.
The Bureau agents are so worried about Lee's wife's behavior, they put her on a watch list.
The FBI discovers that in the weeks before he disappeared, Lee was already under investigation by his employer for links to a Chinese research institute.
Just before he left, Ohio State University was investigating his ties to a top educational facility in Shanghai. And he's been on staff for 20 years. Now that doesn't look right.
Lee's recently discovered China connection poses awkward questions.
What does he know, and could he possibly be a threat?
Lee's work gives him access to highly restricted, cutting-edge technology intended for the Mars 2020 mission.
Lee was working on developing a new imaging technology for use on the Mars 2020 rover. And this was such a new sensitive technology that it's controlled by the government. It's not allowed to leave the country without express permission.
This is specific to national security. This is the heart and soul of long-distance surveillance. This is exactly the kind of technology the Chinese would love to have, not just for a space program, but for top-secret military surveillance.
2 weeks after Lee's disappearance, security officials intercept his wife as she's trying to board a plane to China.
Lee's wife was detained at the airport in San Francisco when she was on her way to meet her husband in Shanghai.
She has all of Lee's files on disk drives, on thumb drives, laptop. Obviously, this is a concern.
Could Lee have been living a double life?
The FBI had to seriously consider the possibility that Lee was a Chinese spy working within NASA.
You can imagine what NASA's thinking. Do you have a problem? Do you have a spy in your midst?
Did he cross the line? Well, that's what everybody wants to find out.
In November 2015, the Chinese Space Agency makes a dramatic announcement that seems to confirm NASA's worst fears.
They've now announced a Mars landing mission for 2020. The same time frame that Lee was going to be working on a Mars mission.
The China Space Agency plans to land a rover on Mars without any exploratory missions. The ambitious goals heighten fears of espionage.
Our missions to Mars in the very beginning failed. Russia, all of their Martian orbiters have failed. Here's China suddenly saying, we don't need any orbiters. We're just going to land right on Mars. How could the Chinese be so confident?
Knowing what's happening in China right now in their aggressive space program, the timing is suspect.
Coincidence? I don't know. I come from the intelligence world. Really, there are very few coincidences.
The links between Lee's disappearance and the rapid progress of China's Mars program remains unconfirmed.
Has a federal offense been committed? The FBI's investigation is ongoing, so we're going to have to wait and see.
For centuries, we have speculated about life on Mars and feared it.
We always think of life on Mars as little green men, but more than likely, if there is life, it may be very different than what we find back here on our own planet Earth.
Now, a NASA probe over the red planet produces new evidence showing this could be a real possibility.
There might be life on Mars, and we're just looking in the wrong place.
Since September 2006, the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter has been taking high-resolution images of the surface of the red planet. 5 years into its mission, the probe captures something puzzling. Long streaks appear on the Martian slopes, and no one knows what they are.
The odd thing is that these surface markings disappear, reappear, and then disappear again.
These streaks are a big mystery. We don't know exactly how they form, at least not all of them. Sometimes they're there, sometimes they disappear.
Mars has fearsome, powerful storms that scour its surface. Could they be responsible for these mysterious streaks?
As the orbit of Mars draws closer to the sun, we see more dust storms across the surface of the planet. The sun heats the surface, the air rises, and dust, sometimes covering half of the entire planet, can rage for months. Imagine we're exploring the surface. Off in the distance, you would see it grow darker and darker. A monstrous cloud, 300, 600 feet high, would be approaching you. In this cloud would be lightning bolts snapping the ground. This would be a huge global Martian dust storm coming your way.
But evidence from Mars rovers suggests that dust storms scour a surface clean. They don't leave localized streaks across the ground. On Earth, similar-looking streaks are caused by water interacting with salt in a desert environment. In 2015, a NASA probe photographed streaks in another Martian crater. It picks up the spectrographic signature of salt. When it passes over again, the streaks have grown.
One pass, it takes a picture of these gullies. Over the next pass, a few months later, now there's an expansive patch of salt.
This can only mean one thing.
Water somehow had to have flowed out and deposited the salt.
But there isn't supposed to be any water on the surface of Mars.
We know that you can't have standing water on Mars. It's a well-known fact that the pressure isn't high enough, the temperature's too low.
Mars is a really dry place. It is a desert in the extreme, extreme way.
The very presence of salt water turns accepted wisdom on its head.
We had been thinking that Mars was a place that was so cold, so dry, that it rendered the flow of liquid water impossible. But if you actually put enough of a special kind of salt inside this water, if you dissolve it, all of a sudden you allow that water to remain liquid even at very low temperatures.
Analysis of the light reflected from the deposits reveal what it's made of. The closest match is a salt called perchlorate.
Perchlorates in high concentrations in liquid water can lower the freezing temperature of water down to minus 70 degrees C. That's extraordinary.
Minus 70 degrees Celsius is minus 94 degrees Fahrenheit. Remarkably, perchlorates can keep water flowing even at such extreme temperatures.
This would explain why the water could last as long as it did traveling down slope before it disappeared and vanished.
But it doesn't explain where the water came from in the first place. A close analysis of the images suggests an exciting possibility.
These streaks don't originate at the top of the crater. They actually seem to be coming out partway down. This corresponds to an underground level, maybe an aquifer running water underground.
It's coming from underneath the surface of Mars. It's underground water that's coming out.
The implications are profound.
So this was an important observation because it tells you that liquid water is still flowing at the surface of Mars today. And where there's liquid water, at least on Earth, there's always life.
For life on Mars, conditions would be extreme.
Some microbes on Earth like perchlorates. They don't mind being in an environment rich in perchlorates, but not at the concentrations that are needed to keep water liquid on Mars. But what we consider to be a hostile environment might not be that hostile for all forms of life. Maybe it can find a way to survive and thrive in that kind of extreme environment.
On Earth, fish thrive in the boiling hot sulfur pools of the Marianas Trench, showing that life always finds a way.
Certainly, as we learn more about life, we learn that it can tolerate more extreme environments than we had thought. Certainly more extreme environments than we humans tend to think of as habitable.
So I would not exclude the possibility of life on Mars even today.
The discovery of salty water oozing from below the Martian surface opens up an important new avenue in our search for life on Mars.
There might be life on Mars, and we're just not finding it because we're only on the surface and it's underground. We're looking in the wrong place.
NASA's Mars rover captures an image of a shadowy shape on the red planet's surface.
You look at this thing and you do a double take.
It looks like it's a crashed spacecraft on Mars.
The photograph causes an online frenzy of excitement.
Now we found some real evidence for alien presence.
October 10th, 2012. Day 64 of Curiosity rover's exploration of Mars.
Curiosity rover is looking for evidence that Mars was once habitable. And to do that, we have all these amazing scientific instruments on the rover, including these incredible color cameras.
Curiosity searches the 96-mile-wide Gale crater for signs of the water that once flowed across the red planet. Among the rocks, one of Curiosity's 17 onboard cameras captures an image of something strange. The shot grabs the attention of UFO hunters.
That image goes up on the web, and there's instant fury about what it could possibly be.
Analyst Mark D'Antonio examines the image for clues.
At first glance, the image looks relatively normal. A bunch of rocks. We see this all the time on Mars. However, down here is a fairly strange object. What could it be?
In the course of exploring Mars, a number of craft have landed on the planet. NASA analysts consider the theory the unexplained object could be the remains of a rival space agency's doomed probe. Russia has launched a total of 19 craft towards Mars. Only 5 have reached the planet. But simple math rules out the idea the mysterious object is a Soviet lander.
All of the Soviet Mars series of landers from the 70s, all of which failed on descent, all of those can be accounted for.
The Soviets aren't the only space agency to send spacecraft to Mars.
Maybe it's the remains of one of our own spacecraft that crash landed on the Red Planet. The question is, which one?
There's only one lander whose exact landing location is not known at all, and that's the Beagle 2.
The Beagle 2, a compact European Space Agency lander, only 3 feet wide, began its descent through the Martian atmosphere on Christmas Eve 2003.
Beagle 2 entered the Martian atmosphere to go look for life at the surface of Mars. But then, contact with it was lost.
Some suggest the Beagle 2 might be the unidentified object in Curiosity's image. Analyst Mark D'Antonio compares European Space Agency photographs of Beagle 2 with Curiosity's image.
This is flat on top, so is this. It's round on the bottom, this appears to be round on the bottom. But there's a problem. This is the wrong shape. This is a longer curve, this is a shorter curve. This can't be that.
In spite of the inconsistencies, the Beagle 2 theory continues to provoke debate. Then, in December 2014, NASA receives crucial new data from its ambitious Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter.
NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter has a camera called HiRISE that takes pictures with a footprint that's comparable in size to that Beagle spacecraft.
The MRO spots an unusual glint of light from the Isidis Planitia Basin. Light that could be reflected by the metallic surface of a lost craft.
Upon close inspection, it turns out that that's the Beagle 2 lander.
NASA's MRO confirms Beagle 2 rests just 2 miles from its intended touchdown. But it's 2,000 miles away from the mystery object discovered by Curiosity.
The Beagle has landed, but not anywhere near where Curiosity is scouring the landscape.
NASA's MRO solves the mystery behind the disappearance of the Beagle 2. But the solution sheds no light on the greater mystery, the strange object discovered by the Curiosity rover. A NASA probe captures an image of a weirdly familiar structure on the surface of Mars.
I would say I'm looking at an aerial satellite image of Stonehenge.
It looks sort of intentional, doesn't it?
Who or what made Marshenge?
You have to ask yourself, is this evidence of civilization on Mars?
September 25th, 2012. NASA's $720 million Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter circles 170 miles above the red planet. Its state-of-the-art, high-rise camera captures a remarkable image.
This image from HiRISE shows a cluster of rocks. They seem to be oriented in a general set of concentric circles. The symmetry is strange.
What's even more intriguing is that they are sitting on a mound. It just seems to be sized perfectly.
Like many terrestrial monuments, the rocks form a circle around an inner grouping of larger stones.
This reminds me very much of something we have right here on Earth. And that something is Stonehenge.
If I wasn't mistaken, I would say I'm looking at an aerial satellite image of Stonehenge. They both have concentric circles with a square or a rectangle in the middle. That's exactly what I'm looking at here.
The famous circle at Stonehenge is more than 5,000 years old and has mystified archaeologists for centuries. At this sacred place, pagan priests of ancient Druid cults communed with the stars.
Its purpose still isn't known for sure, but it seems to be aligned towards astronomical events like winter and summer solstices.
The visual similarities provoke speculation the weird Martian formation could serve a similar purpose.
Are we looking at something that might be the equivalent of Stonehenge on Mars, a Mars-henge?
You have to ask yourself, is this evidence of civilization on Mars?
To date, there is no evidence to support the existence of monument builders on Mars. Some planetary scientists have a more natural explanation for Mars-henge.
On Earth, whenever we see unusual rock formations, the geologists will consider that maybe they've been shaped or influenced by seismic activity.
Theoretically, violent seismic shaking could push the Mars-henge rocks up through the Martian dirt and deposit them on the surface.
It's like taking a box of cereal that has fruit in it, and you shake the box and the fruit all comes to the top. Same mechanism.
But there's a big problem with the Marsquake theory.
We don't know if Mars has Marsquakes. We've never made the measurement. We don't know if the interior of Mars is active like the interior of the Earth.
Another possible clue to the origin of Mars-henge could come from a strange phenomenon on our own planet in Death Valley, California.
Here on Earth in Death Valley, for instance, there are rocks that seem to just move on their own. And we know what that's from. There's ice underneath the rocks, and winds propel them very slowly across the desert, leaving little trails. So the question is, could this be happening on Mars?
Astronomers have found evidence that ice can form on Mars. But close analysis of the image suggests that it cannot account for the arrangement of the Mars-henge boulders.
These rocks are sitting up on top of a peak, and it would take a lot of wind to move a rock on a lot of ice to get it up on top of a peak like this. And on Mars, we don't have air that's dense enough to make that much of a forceful wind that could drive a giant boulder.
The giant boulders were not, it seems, pushed there by Martian winds. A different theory suggests the rocks might not be from Mars at all.
Mars is constantly being bombarded by meteorites. There are impact craters all across its surface. Is it possible that this structure is the result of a cratering event?
Image analysis seems to support this idea.
If we zoom out a little more, we see there's actually a larger circular pattern. Now, what is that? Maybe this is a sediment-filled crater.
NASA calculates that around 200 asteroids smash into the red planet every year. Could one of these impacts have created Mars-henge?
It's unlikely that a large impact would leave a collection of large boulders at the bottom of the crater. If it was a large enough asteroid to make a crater, that asteroid would actually break up into smaller and smaller pieces, and you would see the ejecta outside the crater. And that's not what we see in this case.
In 2020, NASA will send a next-generation rover to explore the Martian surface. One of its objectives is to investigate the geological processes that created the red planet's strange landscape. Until then, the origin of the mysterious Mars-henge will remain unexplained.
This is one of those cases where we probably won't know the answer to how this rock formation formed until we get on the ground at that location.
August 2012. NASA's Curiosity rover arrives on Mars. Just beneath the surface, NASA scientists are expecting to find red oxidized iron dust, and plenty of it. What they're not expecting to find is evidence of a nuclear war. A devastating conflict that seems to have taken place on Mars 300 million years ago. Curiosity rover has been sent to Mars to analyze the chemical composition of the red planet. What it finds, to the surprise of planetary scientists, are significant amounts of Xenon-129.
The Mars Curiosity rover found that the abundance of Xenon-129 is much higher than what we see here on Earth. What process is creating this enhanced abundance of xenon?
Scientists around the world struggle to explain the presence of this radioactive isotope. Among those analyzing the data is Dr. John Brandenburg, a former NASA physicist and deputy manager on the Clementine moon mission. Brandenburg is amazed for one simple reason. Xenon-129 is the byproduct of nuclear weapon explosions.
I've shown this to several nuclear weapons experts, and they have affirmed that this is nuclear weapon signature. There is no other process that can create such a xenon spectrum.
Earth has experienced over 70 years of atomic bomb testing, each time leaving traces of Xenon-129. But the Xenon-129 reading on Mars is still 2.5 times higher than that found on Earth.
The presence of certain elements on Mars indicate that there was a nuclear explosion or explosions on the surface of Mars at some point in the planet's history.
Brandenburg observes 2 nuclear hotspots in the northern hemisphere of Mars, where radiation levels are higher than anywhere else on the planet. What's more, it appears the nuclear blasts were occurring in midair, above the surface.
What's also interesting is what is not found. There is no crater at either site, indicating that these explosions were airbursts.
The size of the radioactive hotspots leads Brandenburg to a devastating conclusion.
We're talking nuclear weapons size of the Empire State Building, dropped from space and detonating kilometers above the surface.
Historically, if you look at pictures and listen to first-hand accounts of the explosion of the bombs at Nagasaki and Hiroshima, it's the same sort of thing. No crater, but massive explosion, massive expanse of energy, total destruction, everything in that energy's path.
Brandenburg has analyzed the Mars rover data to establish when this nuclear holocaust occurred.
Best estimates for timescale based on isotopic evidence is that this happened 300 million years ago.
This could turn our concept of Mars completely on its head.
Many scientists believe that millions of years ago, Mars had an atmosphere and liquid water, conditions where life could thrive.
Mars might even have had oceans and lakes.
Humans have looked for signs of life on Mars since telescopes could first scan its surface. In 1877, Giovanni Schiaparelli mistakenly thinks he sees irrigation or transport canals crisscrossing the Martian landscape. In 1976, the Viking probe sends back low-resolution photos wrongly identifying pyramids and a giant sphinx-like face. But in 2016, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter beams back higher quality images of what some have interpreted as the ruins of Bronze Age-style walled cities.
Obviously, a civilization in that state wouldn't have had the capability to blow themselves up with nuclear weapons, which means that somehow some other predatory alien race must have intervened. Imagine the inhabitants of this Martian civilization. All of a sudden, there's huge flashes of light and heat. Destruction reigns everywhere, and everything you've ever known is destroyed in an instant. It literally would have been hell on Mars.
The weapons not only wiped out the civilization, but basically destroyed the biosphere of Mars, so it could never recover.
The idea of a Martian civilization destroyed in this way seems incredible, and scientists have looked for other explanations for the presence of Xenon-129 on Mars. After all, it is possible for nuclear activity of sorts to take place in nature.
On the continent of Africa, in the country of Gabon, there's a uranium deposit that's been discovered, and it shows clear evidence of a sustained nuclear reaction similar to what occurs in our fission reactors.
Under very unique conditions, water flowing through the uranium deposit can cause fission, the same process used inside an atom bomb.
But this thing did what it did 1.7 billion years ago. Not only were there no humans around then, there wasn't even multicellular life on Earth. Nature has illustrated that it can create its own nuclear reactors.
The question is, could this same event have occurred naturally on Mars?
But former NASA physicist Dr. John Brandenburg says the material found on Mars cannot have been produced by any natural nuclear process.
A natural nuclear reactor, if it had gone unstable on Mars, not only would produce the wrong xenon spectrum, but it would have created two massive craters, and there was no craters. The ground is absolutely smooth.
Brandenburg believes the evidence points in one direction. 300 million years ago, intelligent life on Mars was destroyed in a nuclear war of the worlds.
We've now discovered that humanity is not the most evil species in the cosmos. We are not an aberration on nature. We're part of the fabric of the universe. And not everything in the universe is friendly.
If this happened that Mars was attacked by aliens, it happened when there was virtually no intelligent life on Earth, so they wouldn't have noticed us. But the question remains, now that we're here, are they coming back?